afternoon, everybody. Welcome in. 2 weeks from tomorrow, the opener for Michigan, the 2026 season. It's what we've been waiting for, and it's right around the corner now. And I just got back from Ann Arbor, and Kyle Whittigham spoke to the media. Also, when it rains, it pours. That was some good info coming from the coach today. And then I also spoke with someone who was at practice. So, yeah, talking about practice, talking about what Kyle Whittingham had to say. Was also out there yesterday with both coordinators taking to the podium and talking about east sides of the ball there. So there is plenty to get to. As always, if you're somebody that's out there and you're watching this live, we love to take your feedback. Today is a day that is, chock full of news. A lot of the times, to be honest, sitting around here, it's like, okay, a couple months away, let's talk some Michigan football. Who's your favorite punter? And, what's ever on your mind, I'd like to see where you're at and what you're thinking about. Well, let's get right to it. So Wittingham today, I thought the biggest thing from Wittingham, someone asked him, I think it was this reporter from the Daily, said, hey, back in Chicago a couple weeks ago, you'd mentioned that you thought that the roster was a year or two away. And what did he think now after 14 practices or so? And Wittingham said that he's feeling much better. And so maybe they're not a year or two away. Feeling much better about the depth. He didn't know about the depth when he was in Chicago, and he had talked about the linebackers and even some of the depth at corner, but he's mentioned he didn't want to throw names out there, but I got a name in the linebacking core. Does it matter which two? And, sometimes they're going to flex and, have like three linebackers instead of the edge out there. However, if you're somebody that's, really into whether it's a, 4-3, 3-4 or 2-5, all of these different things, they're going to have those different looks at different times. But over the last 2 days, a name that had not been talked about much, but was mentioned yesterday by Michigan defensive coordinator Jay Hill, and then Wittingham again today mentioned Nate Marshall, and they said Wittingham said he was blessed to have as many defensive ends as that Michigan currently has. I thought also for me the big news in the off season was how Michigan three players, how they were going to come along on the injury front and how close to being ready would they be by the Oklahoma game. And as things stand right now, things are looking pretty good, I would say, for all three. First, John Henry Daly coming back from the Achilles, and, Achilles is supposed to sap some of your explosiveness. So we'll have to see if he has that explosiveness that he had at Utah before he went down with that Achilles. But he was back running June 1st, and Wittingham had mentioned how he and Rod Moore were on pitch counts, that Michigan was putting him on pitch counts, easing him in. Seemed like a smart thing, but people are like, oh, no, they're on pitch counts. Henry Daly's not on a pitch count anymore, and they're still taking it a little bit, I'd say cautiously. He didn't use that word when it came down to Rod Moore. They're backing, his words were, they're backing him off a little bit, so he's not completely full go, but he had yesterday, Jay Hill, the defensive coordinator, talked about how he was out there for 4 consecutive practices. So I think we expect to see Rod Moore start the opener and play. And then, maybe that he will be subbed out a little bit more frequently than he would be, let's say, against Oklahoma the following week. You might see more of Jordan Young and Mason Curtis at safety for Rod Moore, but John Henry Daly sounds like he's a full go. And, so those two players, you're talking about two huge impact players potentially on defense, the great Rod Moore and then John Henry Daly. So Both of those on the injury front, I would have to say, is as good as you could hope for. And we all say, well, you hope that those guys, that's as good as you could hope for. Right now, 2 weeks from tomorrow, away from the opener, the other guy that everyone was wondering about was Andrew Babalola, who may have started at left tackle last year until he tore his ACL in camp. It sounds like, what did he say? Babalola had a minor setback. He has been slowed for whatever that is. And so not out doesn't sound like for a period of time, but if you're speculating about the offensive line, which we all have been, and it looked like it was a battle between Blake Frazier and Andrew Babalola, I have to say today that if I was giving you, and Wittingham was asked about the offensive line and who's going to be starting, he said he knew, but then he said he wasn't revealing it, and he also wasn't putting out a too deep. However, with Babalola being slowed, I would bet that it will be Blake Frazier as your starting left tackle. Now, that leaves the two guards and who was going to be manning those spots for the opener. And the first two names out of Wittingham, without him, saying who was going to be the starters, he went to Link, and the other name that he had mentioned at right guard, Brady Norton. So I think from left to right, we're talking Frazier, Link, Gardera, Norton, and then over at right tackle, of course, Sprague. That's going to be your offensive line. Now, when you look at the sixth offensive lineman, Michigan under Harbaugh, and I think under Sharon Moore, called it a Buffalo package, a heavy set, bringing another additional offensive lineman in. And this staff calls it Rhino, and they used it almost half of the time at Utah last year. So it's not just a gimmick, bringing one guy, or a play or two. You're talking about almost half the snaps. I would expect that to stay the same. Maybe that could be Babalola or a Fabe, who knows, whoever loses out and ends up being, that guy Gatch was mentioned. He said he wanted in a perfect world 10 offensive linemen, but, he's sitting around at 7 or 8, not too shabby. So that looks like the starters there. Asked about surprise players who surprised him. Goodwin at wide receiver was mentioned quickly on who has that was the first name that he came out with. And he said, Savion Hyder, his name has been mentioned quite a bit. Hyder was a little bit of surprise when they were talking about the return game. Hyder's going to get the ball early. He's going to get it often. Hell, he could replace Jordan Marshall at some point. I mean, the sky's the limit for Hyder. He could be the greatest running back in Michigan history. He could be the greatest. He could win a Heisman. I mean, that's the sky's the limit. Whatever you want to say about Hyder, nothing is out of his reach. I mean, that looks like the kind of player he is. Nobody's backing off that. But in the return game, it was Andrew Marsh, his name was mentioned as a punt returner. And on kick return, Savion Hyder could be the kick returner for Michigan. I like both of that. I like putting star players on special teams. I don't like putting a quarterback like Michigan State did one time. I think with Drew Stanton, he ended up tearing up his knee in a bowl game. I'm not talking about putting Tommy Carr on, punt return, something like that. But Hyder as a kick returner, okay. Marsh and Smith Snowden might be both on punt and kick. I don't know if Marsh is going to take every punt, but him and Snowden, figuring out whatever the rotation, whatever you might. If it was me, I might give Marsh the first one, but I would give Snowden a lot of the reps. And against Western, I don't. Sure, I would like to see Marsh shine, and if I blend in what Wittingham had to say today, and then the person that I spoke with who went to practice today, what did I write down as I was just talking with the person that went to practice today? I put that somewhere. He said, I was just listening. And he said, Marsh is going to be a superstar. I mean, not that, I mean, this is information that you thinking, oh, okay, tell me something I don't know. I don't know. Andrew Marsh going to be a superstar. Looked great today at their 14th practice. And, uh, not a bad thing to hear that somebody was impressed with Andrew Marsh being out there and that he looks like a superstar. So there you go when it comes down to the return game. Uh, let's see about Bryce Underwood. You know, there a lot of, I asked about Underwood today. He was asked about Underwood again today. Wittingham, you know, he's great attitude, team captain, all of these kind of things. But he has not been hit at all in practice and will not be hit for the rest of the 2 weeks, which is smart, you know. So how that footwork looks and the delivery looks when they go live in the opener, and then certainly the following week when OU and Venables comes in, you know, that's when we can hear all this. I like hearing that Underwood through the first 5 practices got an A+. I like to hear that they've worked on the footwork and the delivery and that things look good and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But, you know, now you know, we're waiting 2 weeks from tomorrow, and actually 3 weeks from tomorrow is really, I mean, I'm excited as can be about the opener. But of course, the Underwood was great in the opener last year, and then came the Oklahoma game. So the Oklahoma game, that's the first big test. We all know that. I mean, so there you go. Working through more from what Kyle Whittingham had to say today. You know, your kickers, Butkowski and Brown, the punter that they brought in. That's going to be your punter, Cam Brown, and trade Butkowski. There's your place kicker. There's your punters mentioned, who's punt return, kick return, got that starting offensive line. Now, no one wanted to say yesterday, Jay Hill, I think he mentioned 6 linebackers that are in the mix there for the 2, or if they go to 3. So they didn't really want to say anything. I asked the person that was at practice today, and this guy wasn't over here, you know, just like, okay, here are the starters so I can, you know, tell Dennis. He's kicking back watching practice. But he did say, when I asked him about the linebackers, that the NOB, Nathaniel Owasso Boateng, or as he called him, Woo. He said he thought that Woo was the best linebacker today. So I don't know. If I was going to guess before this, I would have said, I think it'll probably be Troy Bowles and Chase Taylor, even though Nathaniel Strayling, the transfer from North Dakota State, is getting quite a bit of press and gets asked about, and he is talked about a lot. I was going to say that I thought it would be Bowles and, like I said, Taylor. But, you know, today, a person that I spoke with who's, you know, knows a thing or two about football said Woo was actually the guy who played the best. But that doesn't mean he's been there. You just had to, you know, you have the one practice that you go to and you see someone, you say, why is this guy starting? Well, maybe the other 13, not so much. But that is good when it comes down to it. What else? The practice observer said that he thought that Wittingham ran a hell of a practice. And I said, well, what do you mean he's running a hell of a practice? He said, you know, he's clearly on top of it. He's well organized. Michigan's in a great situation with Wittingham. You could tell that he has a command of everything that's going on. He said he lets his staff, you know, do their job. He said it reminded him a lot of how Jim Harbaugh ran practice. So nothing but good news there. The biggest takeaway that I took from an observer who was at this, I think it was a scrimmage. I don't know. When I pulled up, I saw a limousine bus, and the players were unloading. So they were over at the stadium. So I don't know, practice, I was thinking that more of a scrimmage. And I think it was a scrimmage. And then afterwards, Wittingham was asked about, when he was off the podium, if there'd be any more scrimmages. And he said no. So this may have been the last scrimmage. The biggest takeaway again was from a guy said, Tariq Boney is going to be an outstanding player. When they were running their sprints back and forth, 41 led all of them. 41 was always at the front. And when it comes down just to the look test of seeing him go off the ball, get off the ball, get after the quarterback, go through the drills, Tariq Boney has the look test. Now, Boney is only listed at 6'1", so it's a diminutive. I don't know about Dwight Freeney, but diminutive defensive end. Most of these guys, like Quiddy Pay was 6'5", Ajabu 6'3". Mostly, your defensive end. How that has to do? You get your hands up and everything. Boney's just listed at 6'1", but the Observer said, he kind of reminded him coming off the edge of Josiah Stewart. That was the comparison that was made. Josiah Stewart was around 6'1", 6'2", so I could see that comparison. Now, because Michigan is so deep at defensive end, Carter Meadows and Boney have been mentioned in consecutive days by Wittingham and Jay Hill. I mean, they like these guys. I mean, they like Boney. They like Meadows. We'll probably see both of those guys in the opener. But, you got John Henry Daly, and then who knows how it's going to play out when it comes down to, because I would think Dominic Nichols, Jay Hill said he flashed at the beginning of camp, and then he was out. He's back now. And what was it? Sprague the other day said he thinks he's one of the best pass rushers in the country. So, Nichols is playing, especially on pass downs. I would think we would be in line to see number 8 there for sure. But, you got Cam Brandt, you got Lugard, 88. He's in the mix there. Then the 2 freshmen that were mentioned there. That's a ton of guys at edge when you start going through it for Michigan, which is good. And again, Wittingham today saying that Michigan is blessed with, and it's, how many coaches say that? We're blessed to have that kind of depth. So who else? Wittingham mentioned, I said Goodwin already, and he said that Meadows and Boney would be involved. Nate Marshall, consecutive days that Marshall, another defensive end, that gets a shout out there. Shamari Earls, 2 days in a row, defensive coordinator and the head coach, talking about Mason Curtis, same way. They're at safety, big guy that you're going to see out on the field. They're feeling good about those guys. One other player who, I don't know what it was. Was it last week? I was asking about red zone targets and, who was going to be big down at the goal line if he had to throw a jump ball. Actually, it was the wide receivers coach, Micah Simon. I asked him that, and I was thinking he'd say, we can go, back shoulder to Marsh, or, we could take one of our bigger wide receivers. J.J. Buchanan, is 6'3". And Simon said, Bonner, our freshman tight end, if we want to throw it up to someone. And I thought maybe he was being a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But Bonner is 6'7". And Bonner was also recognized today as someone who has surprised him a little bit. The guy's a first-year true freshman, and there's a lot of tight ends. And the different ones that come through with the different, possession tight end, blocking tight end, different designations, you want them all to be able to block so you can't really tip your hand. But if you're down there at the goal line, I don't know, would it be a surprise to see Bonner in a situation where it could be a jump ball? No, it would not be. Speaking of tight ends, it was one last thing that the Observer said today. I said, who else? Anybody jump out to you? And he mentioned Boney. 41 jumped out to him. He said 88. 88 was making some plays. Well, 88 is Deacon Tonelli at tight end. So that's it when it comes down to it. Injury-wise, they've been doing pretty good. Luke Hamilton, sounds like he's a reserve offensive lineman. Sounds like he suffered a lower leg or lower body injury, and he could miss the season. So, you don't like hearing any of that, but you know what's going to happen. And you just hope that kind of news when it comes through is one where somebody's going to come back and be 100% and all of that. So, woo! Just talking straight through, blending the practice observer and then what Wittingham had to say today, what Jason Beck, Michigan offensive coordinator, had to say yesterday, and Jay Hill, Michigan defensive coordinator, and what he had to say. This is one of those weeks. I mean, you had Michigan Monday, you had Michigan, showing up, had stuff going on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 in-person. I mean, this is the season is upon us. I mean, we are here. You go for weeks, actually months, where you're not talking with anybody, you're not getting any news. We're rehashing everything. We're fanning the flames, doing all this. And then it just starts coming. It starts coming the news rapidly, and we just got to digest all of it. We're just like, let's go. So that's where we're at right now. We are hearing it, and we're talking with you. Mr. Martini is breaking it down to the hour, 15 days and 8+ hours until football. Old Mark, this is Michigan Mark. He says, okay, a real coach after missing Harbaugh, McDonald, and Minter. Cignetti and May ended the can't win right away trope. Heisman transfer quarterback a necessity, but win right away. Coach equals the team. North Dallas 40 rules. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Michigan does have a real coach here. Yeah, I mean, we know what you're saying. When it comes down to that, we don't have to go through. Yeah, when you say you can't win right away, are the Heisman transfer quarterback a necessity? Yeah, well, I mean, there's different ways. It happened last year with Mendoza. We know that. 1324 slipping in some basketball. He says no Kenny Nolan after the Colorado case went through. Shaking my head, what a joke. Let kids play 5 years. I haven't been paying attention. I thought as of yesterday and this week that there was the 5-on-5, but what did they, some kind of stoppage in there? They can't get a restraining order or something like that. Let's let this play out. I don't know. Nolan, who came from Columbia, who was going to be a nice depth piece and maybe the first guy in off the bench for backup point guard for Michigan when Elliott Cadeau needed a break. But yeah, I haven't seen that news. I'll take your word for it. But also, I would say stay tuned. Mark. It is Michigan Mark. Michigan Mark, you could tell by the way he's throwing out numbers. 266 yards rushing at Utah, 19/20 leading rushing team wins the game in almost every big game to boot. Yeah, well, what was Utah number 2 in rushing last year? They had a rushing quarterback. Michigan has a rushing quarterback this year, a dual threat quarterback, obviously, with Underwood. And they've got a great 1-2 punch at running back. So, yeah, I wonder, when things, this is a great problem to have, say, we don't want to force the pass, but also they want to throw for over 200 yards a game. The what would they have, Mark, 188 or something, or was it 178 last year? It was, not enough. You got to get the pass. You got to be putting up points. I know, give me points per game, give me top 5 at points per game, and you can run it every down. But being able to be explosive in the passing game and be able to pound in the running game, I mean, that's the dream. That's the dream. And maybe they can have that. Bale says, from the sound of it, Nate Marshall might be starting opposite of Daly. Yeah, I would say hold your horses on that. I mean, that Marshall has had a good week of practice and is getting some run. in the media is a good thing. But I would be surprised. I go back to what I was hoping, after spring, and I said, you got all these guys, the Nichols and the Bryant and heck, Benny Patterson, all these different who Sprague said is strong as hell. You've got all these guys, Lugard at defensive end. It's like, okay, there's a lot of guys, but I was hoping that between Nate Marshall and Carter Meadows, that one of those guys would just be like, was going to take someone's breath away, and that would be out there. And at this point right now, it's actually, if I was just going on superlatives from teammates and coaches, I would say that at the edge, the surprise player would be it would be Tariq Boney. Now, hey, he's a true freshman who's been going through orientation, who he wasn't in for spring. But look, Rod Moore wasn't in for spring back in the day, but he was out there right away. And he was great. He was stopping Jahan Dotson on fourth down at Penn State later on in the year. But I would say, if we're just going on the buzz again, Boney buzz. Do it, Teddy. Let's go. Now we're talking about Keegan asking if Bonner could claim the number one tight end this year. They have all said this. When I say they all, Jay Hill is the one who I'm talking about, and Kyle Whittingham, that all of the tight ends, and you'd like them all to be able to block. And so you couldn't tell. Remember when you'd have Schoonmaker down there. You couldn't tell. And these guys all could catch, but they could all block. Bonner, from the sounds of things, from Whittingham said today, that, his ability to catch the ball and his frame, they like it, but he needs to get a little bit better, with his hand on the ground blocking. And, that will come with putting some weight on and lifting. But, Colston Loveland, he got better at that. And Loveland needed a break when he was a true freshman to get out there, and he got that break and never looked back. So I get the idea that these coaches are not going to be hesitant to put guys out there as freshmen. And, now I know that the 5-5 didn't go through, so maybe they're going to be thinking, you still could play a couple games if there's under the old rules and keep your red shirt. So I don't know. I would hope within 2 weeks that they'll have something where they can know whether they're going to be able to play guys or not, or if it's going to be a 5-5 or the red shirt. We're sitting here. It's changing. It doesn't do anything to scream about it. I don't think. Everybody's screaming about it. This is ridiculous. I love it. Let's pick up another player. Whatever side you're at, let's just get the rules down. And what are they going to be? Going to be a day before the season starts saying, nope, no 5-5. It is, the part where they're going to be all these cut downs. The NFL, where they have to, cut it down, their rosters and everything. And the guys are going to be like, oh, I'm going back to college. It's a little silly. But tight end one down in the red zone, maybe. Joe Blue says it would really be great not seeing a receiver running down the sideline and Bryce throwing the ball high and wide for another incompletion. Hope they sort that out. Well, yeah, I mean, we can go through all of this and everything else, but if somebody came out and said, what's your take on the Michigan football season? They're going to go as far as Underwood takes them. We'll see at the end of the year. I'd say, well, yeah, I mean, you've nailed it. I mean, that is going to be the case. Now, all these guys, great running game, great offensive line, wide receivers with good hands. Those all are things that are going to help Bryce Underwood, not even to mention if they have a stout defense that's getting him the ball back and a good punter with special teams that can get him the ball. All of those things are going to help him. But Underwood, Actually, Wittingham was asked, hey, was kind of the question, if not exactly. Wittingham, if you get to the end of the year and Michigan's in position to play for the championship and get to the postseason, what will have went right? His first answer, that Bryce Underwood played really well. Yeah. So we know it. I mean, every podcast, everyone who talks about Michigan football goes right to Underwood and starts talking about how much better. Is he going to process the game faster? Is his footwork going to be better? Is his arm angles going to be tight? All of it is there. So, yeah, Joe Blue, I'm right with you. So are we all. It's good to have it out there and talk about it. Shad talking about Michigan hoops. Love it. Get 2 weeks away from the opener and people talking Michigan basketball. What a time to be alive. Michigan hoops couldn't load up too much. Funny how the ruling comes out the day after Nolan was coming here. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, let's see the rulings. Let's wait and see what the courts do now. I don't know. If I have to bet, I haven't even looked and seen, what actually was said or anything else. I'm just taking your guys' word for it. My guess is there'll be another ruling that will supplant this particular one, and they'll be back and good to go. Was it a done deal? Come on. 1324 making it sound like it's over. He'll never be able to play a game for us. We'll see. See. As it stands right now, never. Well, let's go. We got a Michigan Mark saying LSU Joe Burrow. We like hearing good things about Tonelli representing the 815. Tonelli representing the 815. And so for that, what would we have to do? We would have to see where Deacon Tonelli is from. And since I have he is from Oswego, Illinois. The 815. Hope I said his town right. Yeah, the 815. From my scrolling mindlessly at times on social media, there's 2 Michigan football players I run across the most. Maybe only 2. During basketball season, it was Yaks. He would always be with McKinney and Gale. I would see those guys all the time. They're going live. They're doing everything. This year, the 2 guys that I see here in the summer the most, one is Tonelli. He's always playing video games online and talking with Michigan fans, talking with anyone. I watch like a minute. It's not really been I'm not really a video game thing. I've never been I don't play video games, and then watching people play video games, not been my thing. The other one's Jair Hill. He's always on there too, playing video games. I'm simulating with a Joey stick. It's kind of stupid to do. Rashad says the Miami teams from the 80s, 90s, and Clinton Portis McGahee teams did both. They ran and they had threats on the outside. Andre Johnson, Jeremy Shockey types. Michigan can do both. Beautiful. I mean, yes. Let's see both. Let's see Superman Andrew Marsh. Let's see JJ Buchanan. Let's see Travis Johnson take the top off the defense a few times. Let's see Underwood on cork, some 80-yarders. Let's see it. And let's witness. I think we're all anticipating watching a ground and pound with a dynamic duo of Jordan Marshall and Savion Hyder. Mark says he's going to miss Justice Haynes. Guy was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Hope the Marshall Hyder fully up to speed, but Haynes looked almost as good as Adrian Peterson. So those are big shoes to fill. Now, look, I liked Justice Haynes as much as anyone, but he didn't look like all day long, Mark. He did have. He reminded me of Tyrone Wheatley a little bit in that you give him a crack and he can take it the distance. He can take it 50, 60. He had a couple of those 80-yard runs. That's Wheatley-like. I don't know, all day long could do that too, but, Adrian Peterson a little bit more physical, he blash. And that, I don't think Haynes had that necessarily. But, hey, that's just me talking about it. Justice Haynes, maybe more Jonathan Taylor than who also actually, I like the JT comparison, as I've said it. Okay, let's get some more. Wittingham, says Eminem, a great get to Bear or SC or Washington. Utah played well above their playing weight versus Michigan twice. Yeah, Mark has not weighed in on what he has thought of Wittingham. Yeah, look, Wittingham, when Jake Butt came out, was it earlier this month or maybe it was in Chicago at the Big Ten coaches meetings? He said he was the perfect fit. There were a few people like, a perfect fit. In some ways, he is a perfect fit. In the ways that he reminds you of, I don't know, Bo. He coached as the head man at Utah for 21 years, like Bo at Michigan. He's no nonsense. Run the ball. Stop the ball. Come on. That's like Bo. He said he loved Bo, or liked Bo. I don't know if he said loved, but whatever. That he's like Bo, so, that fit. If you're like Bo and you coach 21 years like Bo, I mean, that's a pretty good fit. Now, the part about in the Utah and the Utah Wolverines, is that a great fit? No, it's not. That he's, pals with Urban Meyer, that's not a great fit. But those are things that you can get over. And it's different now that and Michigan's always cast a wide net when it comes down to recruiting. But the way the game is played now in recruiting, it's as much about cash as it is about, being regional and having your ties that way. Their ties are having the big checkbook in your back pocket and saying, all right, you want in? Let's go. Teddy says he doesn't see that many NFL cuts finding spots on a college roster. I don't know. There's you can always use another player. $13.24. Look, I would say have a little patience, when you're talking about a backup point guard and, that they didn't get a kid from Columbia. Well, Trey was in a pinch, played some point. I know it didn't look great, but, another year. And, the guys that they have, I mean, they could be all right there. And how many times last year could you have a perfect roster? And I don't think we even talked about it heading into the season that it was a perfect roster. People are like, I don't know, they're going to be able to shoot the three well enough. Who was going to be their backup point guard last year? They didn't really have a, good backup point. They ended up having a good backup point guard because Kaysen ended up being great, but he was a question mark. Shug is another Illinois guy, K3, a.k.a. Keiki. Yes, that is where Jair Hill is from. Let's go. Let's do it. Teddy making a prediction, flat out saying that Marshall and Hyder will perform. No doubts about them. Jordan Marshall and Hyder. Yep. No, I have no doubts about that either. I'm with you. They both have a similar type running style. It's not It's not a thunder and lightning. It's a thunder and thunder type situation. Hyder runs a lot like Marshall. Wish Justice the best at Georgia Tech. They have a few good running backs. Yeah, here's the thing. Haynes went for the money, which, can you blame him? Sure, you can. He's not staying at Michigan, so you can blame him. But can you blame Michigan? They're like, we can get Haynes. We can meet his demands. If maybe he wanted $2 million, Michigan was offering him $1 million. Or Michigan was in. It wasn't a sure thing, man. Tennessee, Ohio State. Who else was in there with Hyder? A few other teams. He had 4 or 5. I mean, all of Georgia, big-time teams. Could Michigan get Hyder and then have him for 3 years or 1 year with Haynes? Now, look, I'll take the bird in the hand. I mean, it was a little bit of a gamble because they weren't sure. It might have been thought they were sure. But it's not like I don't think that they got Hyder and then lost Haynes. Is that how it worked? If that's how it worked, then, that was a lot easier. But, it's not as easy when you're in thinking, yeah, we're going for Hyder, and then we won all 3. 13-24. How do I see the first offensive drive versus Western going? Incomplete, 3rd down pass, red zone turnover, field goal, Bryce interception, Bryce 40-yard touchdown completion, etc. Well, they will script out the first series, and the first play that I would run would be giving it to Jordan Marshall over Blake Frazier at left tackle. That's what I would do. The next play, I would target Andrew Marsh. So I'm going Marshall, then I'm going to Marsh. And then I'm giving an option to Underwood to roll it out and get Buchanan or get Marsh deep or run it. So I'm going to say that Underwood, he's going to play it. He's going to run it. So we've got a Marshall run, a Marsh throw, and then a first down, taking a nice, what the defense gives him from Underwood, who runs for a first down. Then I'm going back to Marshall. Then I'm going to have to get some other people involved. Let's get the tight end. You like getting the tight end over the middle? Let's get the tight end over the middle. I'm thinking, so how many? I'm already up 6-7 plays. Let's kind of repeat that and take 12 plays, 5-yard touchdown run, Jordan Marshall. That's how I would pick it. That's how I would bet it. That's what I am going to continue to say. Touchdown, Michigan, 12 play, 76-yard, 6 minutes off the clock, 7-0 Michigan after the Bukowski extra point is good. Kankakee. That makes it a little bit easier on me. Thank you. Blue Bluffs with a picture of his floorboards or something. I guess my eyes aren't great, so it could be something a little bit different than that. BB says, given Bryce is the biggest question mark, what would be the projected record if we had 2023 JJ as the quarterback? Do we see this as a top 10 team if we knew what Bryce could do? Well, my first reaction would be yes. If we knew that Bryce was going to be twice as good, you would project Michigan to be a top 10 team. You would project Michigan to make the playoffs. That's what I'm projecting. I know, it's tough because you looked at last year and Bryce and then you listen to him, you're like, I don't know. I don't really, but I don't know when he's going to make the jump. I'm anticipating he's going to make a pretty big jump this year. Michigan's got the talent. I don't think they're going into any game thinking, we can't win this game. We just don't have what it takes to take down Oklahoma. We can't win in the trenches against Indiana. Now, hey, going to Oregon and going to Ohio State, they're going to drop a couple games. If Michigan had JJ as their quarterback right now, yeah, they would be better. And so JJ had, that was his third year, obviously. So Bryce ultimately might be better than JJ. I think we all hope that is going to be the case. So, yeah, the question mark, he is the biggest question mark. How much is he going to develop? If it's a lot, then Michigan is a playoff contender. If it's bad, you're talking about 7-5. Which nobody wants to hear. And I don't want to say 8-4 is even a bad season. Michigan has to go 9-3 this year at the bare minimum. And I don't like talking about 9-3 because that's not going to get them into the playoffs more than likely. And 9-3 leaves it in a spot where you're like, well, how did Bryce develop? How did he play? He might just want to hit eject here. You don't like to talk about those things, but we can talk about it quickly. If they don't make the playoffs, the hope is that Bryce develops and that he's going to come back and that you think 27 is going to be a championship season where there's no question marks and that he's one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback returning in the country. Again, that's the hope. $13.24 just got his wisdom teeth pulled. Can't eat for a week. No Zingermans. Go blue. Yeah, I remember getting my wisdom teeth out. I remember sitting there, they put you under, and I'm thinking, I'm going to fight getting put under. 5 seconds later, I was out. Yeah, and then you drink shakes for a week. That's right. Don't forget to ice your face to prevent swelling. I had minimal swelling because I iced it immediately and regularly. Take care. Maybe the ice was the shakes that I was sucking down. Let's see. Rashad loves to eat. Who doesn't? We all love to eat. Eating can be fun. Okay, that is going to do it for this particular show. It's great to see everyone here. We are that close to the season. I'll be ramping up the coverage. I got to see. Is it going to be the same time, same dates? Those are the things that I'm not 100% sure about right now, how it's all going to work through. But by the opener, I'll have more clarity there. Will I be watching any high school football? That is a great question and one that I can't answer at this point. Just how things have worked for me. I would have never thought, if you go back to when I was playing high school football and got hurt in the final game as a sophomore, if you'd have said, you know what, you only watch one more high school football game live for the rest of your life. Well, I'd be like, what? But that right now has been true. I've only gone since I've been in high school to one high school football game. A lot of that, I started working Fridays as a Michigan hockey board op for a decade. When I worked, then I was covering Tiger games every Friday. Tigers always play. Always Tigers on Friday. So it just never really lined up for me. It didn't happen, So, but hey, it's not like I'm sitting there like, I'm never going to a high school. It's just, that's the way it's played out. I remember going back to the high school game. It was some sort of like 50th, maybe 75th game back at Livonia Franklin. So it was, homecoming type deal. I walked in with my wife, we were going to look for the pictures and everything. And not even 1 minute into the halls of Franklin, this dude walks up. He's like, hey, Dennis, George, it's 88. Wow. And on the very last rung on the basketball, they had the basketball showcase, all this stuff, they had defensive players of the year. And all the way down, it's probably out of there now. There it was. There was my name. I was very proud to be able to show my wife that. She made a big deal about it. It was cool. That's here. 2027, let's see. 2026. Woo!